Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Hello there! As we venture forward, we wanted to offer you a dose of nostalgia from Something Scary for the next upcoming weeks. For those of you who have been following us for a while, you might recall these compilations we used to put together. Well, we decided to bring them back. We hope you enjoy these scary compilations.
Dylan's email popped up with an alert. Packages have been delivered. He had fallen asleep next to his computer again. It was a day like all the rest, monotonous. But getting a notification of deliveries arriving gave him an exhilarating feeling. Just last week, he was able to nab a gaming system that was hard to find in stores. However, a mysterious package that had arrived the day before had caught him off guard. Inside of it had been a weird, ancient-looking jar. After opening that, he found nothing inside except a weird, earthy smell. As he rushed along the hallway to get to the lobby, he passed the painting of a moonlit valley by his apartment door and noticed that it was hung crookedly. He stopped to fix it, but the painting swayed back to its crooked position. The lights flickered, the air was still, and a wave of deja vu came over Dylan. Trying to shake it off, he continued down the hall toward the lobby when he heard a crash. Looking back, he saw the painting was on the floor. Dylan approached it carefully when a drop of something wet landed on the cracked frame. Dylan leaned in closer, and then another drop landed on his head. He touched it, and it was a bit thicker than water. It was saliva with strands of red mucus. Dylan's eyes widened as he looked up. Above him, staring at him hungrily, was a naked humanoid creature with pale, almost gray skin. Its eyes were white, its teeth jagged. In an instant, its jaw gaped wide open as if unhinged. Catapulting towards its dagger-like teeth tore into his throat as the full weight of the thing tackled him to the ground. Then, darkness. Dylan woke up at his desk again. Disoriented, he looked at the message that flashed on his laptop screen. Packages have been delivered. Dylan was unsure what came over him, but he wasted no time as he checked his empty doorstep. He ran as fast as he could, past the crooked painting of the moonlit valley. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, and he heard the creature scurrying along the roof, hissing and screeching as it chased Dylan. It grabbed him, and its snarling jaws were the last thing Dylan saw before darkness. Dylan couldn't believe his eyes as he read the same notification from before. Was he having a dream within a dream? He wondered if he was truly awake. The days seemed to blend into each other so often now. He pinched himself. He was awake and alive. That thing couldn't be real. Nevertheless, he felt ridiculously on edge and grabbed a letter opener. He tried to assure himself that he was hallucinating from a weird sleep cycle. Opening the door, he plotted the apartment building layout in his head. Get to the lobby, find the package. As he passed the crooked painting again, he quietly set it down on the floor. As he looked from side to side, he wondered if he was losing his mind. Dylan ducked into the hallway quietly and tiptoed down the hall. Just in case, he said to himself. Doubting his sanity, he swore he heard the scurrying again. It got louder, closer, and then it stopped. Dylan held his breath as he reached for the door to the lobby. The door made a horrid loud creak as it opened. The creaking of the door was abruptly followed by the sound of scurrying, fastly approaching. Dylan quickly grabbed his letter opener and swung around to find the creature there before him. Its clawed arm was raised, and Dylan stabbed the letter opener firmly into the creature's temple before it was able to slash him. The inhuman screech that came out of it pierced his clouded thinking and made his head throb. The creature thrashed, then lay still. Dylan took this chance. He crawled through the door into the lobby and closed the heavy door behind him. He looked down at his package and choked on cries, afraid to go back inside his building where the dead creature was. Was it truly worth it, all that he had done? He ripped open the package with his name on it, but inside was nothing but a piece of paper. Before he could read it, the scurry came back, this time faster and coming from the door leading to the outside. A chorus of chirps and clicks that sounded more like laughter echoed all around him. Whatever that thing was, its screech had called more of them, and they were furious. Panic took over, and Dylan ran back to the door that would lead back to his apartment, yanking the heavy lobby door open, still clutching the slip of paper from the package. Then a sharp ache stabbed into his back and out through his chest. He choked up blood, the iron taste filling his mouth faster than he could swallow. He didn't die quickly this time. He was stuck on the claw of one of these things, unable to move and slowly bleeding out as he contemplated what had happened to him. Sure, he'd wake up again, but these things were everywhere, inside the halls and outside his building. If he stayed inside his apartment, they'd eventually get him there as well. There was no running now. He was trapped in a time loop of hell, a nightmare he was doomed to repeat forever. More of the creatures gathered to chirp and cackle at him, feeding on him as he bled. With the last of his strength, he held up the slip of paper he had found in the package. It was a drawing of that ancient, earthy-smelling jar from yesterday. It had been one of the many packages he had stolen off of porches. Below the bottle was a message. Dylan, I hope you keep enjoying my gift. This is why you don't open other people's packages.
Susanna and Lula resided as neighbors with a direct view into each other's rooms. As best friends at the time, this arrangement served as an ideal means for exchanging messages back and forth. Although remaining close, their high school years transformed the friends into competitors in every aspect. Boyfriends were no exception and likely to be the cause of their friendship ending forever. One day after school, the captivating melody of a guitar lured both teenagers outside. As the music grew louder and more distinct, they gazed down the street. Accompanied by the thundering sound of galloping hooves, a shadowy figure approached on a horseback. The man was slightly older than they were and playing guitar while riding down the street. They caught just a glimpse of the man's deep yellow eyes from underneath his extremely large hat. He acknowledged both young women with a nod, and they were visibly smitten as he strolled by. Who was that? Susanna asked. Lula said it didn't matter because he was going to be hers. Susanna rolled her eyes and went back inside to her schoolwork. Over the course of the next few days, the mysterious rider rode past the houses every day, just as the sun was setting. One evening, he threw a flower to Susanna. It seemed as though she had won him over with her long, shiny hair. Lula's hair wasn't short, but it wasn't nearly as long as Susanna's. Losing this man to Susanna infuriated Lula, leading her to devise a vengeful scheme. The next day at school, she discreetly slipped a note into Susanna's locker. It read, "Congratulations, you have been invited to join the National Honor Society. Please be at the informed meeting in the library at 7 p.m. Susanna was thrilled and waited at school until the meeting time. When she realized she was the only one sitting in the library, she looked at the time and it started to put the pieces together. She had been deceived and she had a strong feeling her name started with an L, if you catch her drift. She fumed her entire walk home. She felt utterly embarrassed. She arrived home to see the mysterious man on Lula's front porch, serenading her with a song. Lula flashed Susanna a cruel smirk as Susanna stormed into her house. Soon, the man was outside of Lula's house every day after school. Lula was smitten. After a couple of weeks, Susanna began to notice that her neighbor looked different. Her eyes were sunken as if she wasn't sleeping. She was pale and painfully thin, and oddly, her hair was now always in braids. Well, good. That's what she gets for being so nasty, Susanna thought. One day, her Thea came over to visit and was helping her mother make dinner. Susanna was at the kitchen table and she rolled her eyes when she heard the familiar sound of the man's guitar coming from Lula's house. Her Thea froze. She hushed Susanna when she tried to talk so she could get a good listen. It seemed like her Thea was familiar with the music. When Susanna asked her what was wrong, her Thea said, "This is the sound of the devil." Susanna wanted to laugh, but Thea's expression and tone of voice really scared her. Her Thea explained that the music was the sound of El Sobreron. He is known to be a short man dressed in black with boots, a thick belt, and a shiny buckle. He always wore a large hat to cover his face. Legend had it that he had been seen all over Mexico, to countries in Central America like Guatemala and Colombia in South America. He looks for young, long-haired women and woos them by playing captivating melodies with his guitar that he accompanies with his sweet-sounding voice. His victims fall under a spell of love as he serenades them. El Sobreron then clings to the woman and hunts their every thought, stopping them from sleeping and eating as he tightly weaves long braids into their hair. If a woman becomes a victim of El Sobreron, she is doomed to starve to death. Susanna was shocked. No matter how sneaky Lula was, she didn't deserve that. She told her Thea she thought El Sobreron already had taken hold of his next victim, Lula. Was there anything that could be done? Moments later, she was sneaking into Lula's bedroom window just like she did when they were kids. She saw Lula in bed, looking sickly and exhausted. Susanna held sharp scissors over Lula. She screamed as Susanna brought the scissors right onto Lula's hair, and with 2 snips, she snipped it all off. Confused but relieved not to have been stabbed, Lula demanded an explanation. Susanna told her everything she had learned about El Sobreron, and her Thea said the only way to break the spell and survive was to cut off all your hair so the devil no longer has a hold of you. Lula quickly got better and kept her hair short. There was no longer any sign of El Sobreron. The 2 girls were back to being friends again after all. Ladies always need to have each other's back. But they always felt a sense of remorse for future victims of the deadly music of El Sobreron.
Sibong grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa's biggest and very picturesque major city. But there were things about her past that troubled her, like the fact she was born in the once highly renowned, but now infamously haunted Kempton Park Hospital, which inexplicably closed its doors on the day after Christmas in 1996. There were rumors of extreme malpractice, but officials debunked the claims, stating it was just understaffed and in the wrong area. Every so often, someone in the local government placated the public, suggesting it was going to be renovated and reopened, but the false promises never came to fruition. The grounds are empty and most say are haunted without any official explanations. To this day, abandoned hospital beds still lined the halls, jars of organs rotted in the labs, and splatters of blood covered the walls. Sibong was resolved to brave the grounds regardless. She'd heard there were old files still inside, and having been adopted, was hoping to find information about her birth parents, unable to access current records through the normal official channels because of her age. Late one night, she snuck out of her house and rode her bike to the hospital. She locked her bike to a fence, pulled out her flashlight, and quickly found a way in through a broken door. As soon as she entered the building, she was overcome by a horrid stench. She gagged, pulling her shirt up over her nose and mouth. The building was somehow freezing cold inside, and she wished she had brought a jacket, but she continued on, determined to get what she had come for. Sibong followed the dilapidated signs, guiding her deeper to the maternity ward. As she got closer, she heard babies crying. The hospital had suddenly closed almost 20 years ago, staff even leaving behind expensive equipment. Although there hadn't been any patients left when it was abandoned, she still shuddered at the thought of those who had not made it out alive. Just outside the nursery, she found an office with multiple filing cabinets. She thumbed through the files, searching for her name, but there were so many. After what felt like the 100th baby girl named Sibong, she felt goosebumps pop up all over her neck and arms. Finally, this must be me, she thought, looking at the birth date. The file listed Operating Room 4 as the site of her birth, but there were no names listed for her parents. The only clue was that following her own name was the last name Sitole. Sibong clutched the file to her chest and wandered down the hallway, weaving around empty beds with bloody sheets and various surgical implements strewn haphazardly across the floor. She was looking for the operating room where she was brought into the world. Maybe there were other files or clues there. The crying grew louder and more desperate, but Sibong continued. After what felt like forever, she finally saw a sign that had dropped to the floor years ago that read, OR4. She peered through the large, dirty window and saw an old operating table and surgical equipment. Everything was there, except the doctor's. She tentatively stepped inside. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Whipping around, she pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Sibong began to panic. She looked around for another exit, but there was none. The sound of babies crying was now deafening. She had the feeling she was being surrounded. She spun around, searching, but saw no one. She was having trouble breathing, and her throat began to burn, breathing becoming harder and harder. The sensation spread throughout her body, and she fell to the floor, writhing in pain until suddenly it stopped, and everything was still. Slowly, she opened her eyes and screamed. She was surrounded by ghosts of all ages. The small ghost of a 5-year-old girl spoke to her in a whisper.
Sibong Sitole, you were brought into this world here in OR4, just like the rest of us. We tried to warn you away, but now that you have returned, this is also where you will leave this world.
The spirit added.
Now you are one of us.
Sibong looked down at her hands and instead of flesh and bone, now saw nothing but the faded translucent outline of her ghostly extremities. Through her tears, she tried to tell them that she was alive, but she wasn't anymore. She was just like the rest of them now. Those fortunate enough to have made it out once should have never returned. Sibong saw a flashlight outside the operating window. She looked up to see a small group of people, amateur ghost hunters, no doubt. How ironic. I saw a bike outside, so there's gotta be someone in here, someone said. Sibong ran to the glass and banged on it, shouting for help, but they couldn't hear her pleas. Their flashlight beams shone straight into their eyes, but they could not see her. They tried the locked door once and then moved on. As Sibong wailed, joining the cries of those who surrounded her, forever trapped inside OR4.
It's getting warmer outside, and I'm always trying to find new ways to stay hydrated in the heat. And whether you hydrate to live or live to hydrate, Liquid IV quenches your thirst faster than water alone. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water is all you need, and my favorite flavor is lemon lime. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, and no artificial sweeteners, and 0 sugar. 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness, Plus, it's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. It's really the best drink you can consume when you are sweating, you need a little boost, or you're just looking for some extra daily vitamins. I take it before a workout, before I record the podcast, or anytime I'm feeling a little run down. However you hydrate, grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use code SCARY at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code SCARY at liquidiv.com.
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.